So we have a lot of challenges in our quest to get the backs of the American taxpayers. We want to identify waste. We want to identify fraud. We want to identify abuse. We want to try to hold people accountable for abuse and fraud. We would love to try to claw some of this money back. And in some instances, Secret Service with some of the fraud has been able to claw some of the money back that was spent fraudulently in the name of COVID. So all the COVID money that was spent is going to be a priority for the House Oversight Committee. We're also going to have a huge interest in the debacle at the southern border, Mr. Speaker. When you look at what's going on the border, and there's been no shortage of floor speeches on this side of the aisle over the past 2 years about that, we're concerned about some of the decisions that have been made at the top. We've been to the border, on the Republicans on the House Oversight Committee, many times. Have several members of the committee that represent border states. And we've heard from Border Patrol agents. And I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, what we've heard from Border Patrol agents is very concerning, especially about conversations they've had with Secretary Mayorkas. So in a recent trip to the southern border about a week or so ago, Leader McCarthy announced that investigating the potential wrongdoing at the southern border would be a priority in the next Congress, and that Mr. Jordan and Mr. Comer would oversee the investigation. So we are going to do that. We're going to do that on day one. When we look at other hearings that's been in the news that I don't think it's any secret, and I will conclude with this one, Mr. Speaker. We talk about the Biden family influence peddling investigation. Now, there are some media outlets that have done a very good job of reporting accurately what the purpose of this investigation is. And then there are a whole lot of media outlets that have blown this off, and they say this is the Hunter Biden laptop investigation. That is not true. And let me be very clear. This is an investigation of the President of the United States to determine whether or not he and his administration is compromised because of the millions and millions of dollars that they have received from our adversaries in China, Russia, Ukraine, and even the Middle East. We look at all the decisions that this administration has made that we scratch our heads of why would they do this? Why would they do that? Why would they cancel the Keystone Pipeline? Why would they cut off drilling? Why would they make it harder to get permits? Why are they going to Saudi Arabia begging for more oil? Why are we trying to force electric vehicles in the postal fleet and the government? And why are we doing all of this stuff? And then you look at some of the business dealings that the president's family was involved in. And the one that strikes me is the most concerning, Mr. Speaker, was the one with CFC Energy, which is a Chinese energy company, was a Chinese energy company, and Hudson West, which is the company that the president's son was involved with, a company that the president's son also asked for keys to be made because of his partner coming in, which happened to be the current president of the United States. But regardless, there was a PowerPoint presentation on the laptop of the United States of America, map of the United States of America. It was in Chinese, and it had all these major natural gas suppliers listed. And the objective was to help this Chinese energy company not only purchase American liquefied natural gas, but also to help this Chinese company start by taking ownership in the drillers of natural gas in the United States. Now let's think about that. There's an outrage in this body, and there's an outrage in America over China buying farmland in Dakotas. Here we have an effort by the Biden family to help China take ownership of an American energy industry. I find that concerning, Mr. Speaker. We've been criticized for wanting to investigate this by many in the mainstream media, and I find that ironic considering that in the last administration, there were many investigations. In fact, they're still investigating the last administration. Now, I'm not going to comment on the last administration whether these investigations are warranted or not. It's not up to me to decide. But what I will say is we're going to investigate any potential wrongdoing in this White House. And at the very least, we're going to let the American people know exactly what was going on within this family. And it's not just the president's son, it's the president's brothers as well. This was a family business. They didn't manufacture anything. They weren't licensed to sell anything. They don't own any real estate. They don't have any employees. What was the business? I would argue it's influence peddling. But we're going to investigate that and see. So the one challenge I have, and that we will have providing oversight on this side of the aisle, from this side of the aisle, is to restore confidence in congressional oversight. Because let's just be honest, Mr. Speaker, and I blame both parties for this, congressional oversight doesn't have a lot of credibility. We've had a lot of high-profile hearings over the past decade that really haven't, unfortunately, amounted to a whole lot. There's been a lot of fishing, a lot of hearings, a lot of outrage, a lot of tax dollars spent, some pretty good information recovered, but at the end of the day, not a lot's happened. I blame, again, both parties, particularly the current chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, because many of his investigations were based on things that we now know, like the Steele dossier, that were not true. So this investigation with the President of the United States is based on interviews that we've already had. This is based on documents that we have, many in that laptop, which, by the way, the Washington Post has confirmed is a legitimate laptop. And then when the White House and the Democratic National Committee came out and said, oh, well, that may be the president's son's laptop, it's been compromised. There's been a folder added. CBS News did a forensic audit and proved that that is a legitimate hard drive that has not, and I repeat, has not been tampered. Now we find out from Elon Musk that there were people involved in the president's campaign, involved in the Democratic National Committee, and I fear involved in high levels of the government. We haven't gotten to that yet, but stay tuned. That were telling everyone, especially in the social media companies, oh, that's not true. That's Russian disinformation. Very concerning, because one must ask oneself, why were they doing that? What's on that computer? And don't tell me, Mr. Speaker, it's a bunch of pictures and videos. I don't care about the pictures and video. It's the data on there about the Biden family influence peddling with our adversaries across the globe. And that, Mr. Speaker, is why the House Oversight Committee will investigate the President of the United States for any potential wrongdoing and try to determine whether or not this administration is compromised. So, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the time today. I thank you for the opportunity to tell the American people a little bit about what the House Oversight Committee's goals and objectives are in the next Congress. We have a big job. Not only do we have trillions of dollars to try to account for that have been misappropriated, misspent, abused in this body, we also have a lot of investigations to conduct, while at the same time trying to restore credibility for congressional investigation. So I look forward to working with every member of this body, Mr. Speaker. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. Pursuant to Section